Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the Queers of Time podcast.
I'm Matt.
I'm James.
I'm Kenny.
And I'm Kat.
And this is a podcast to talk about all the gay stuff in the Wheel of Time.
Because we're gay and we like the Wheel of Time. As always, thank you to Lux or Feral Venator Surain. So we've mentioned it in a few different episodes, but during JordanCon we had the amazing opportunity to briefly chat with Guy Roberts, who played Uno on the Wheel of Time TV show. We were alternating questions with a few other podcasts, including with Danny and Brett from the Wheel Weaves, a first-time reader podcast that you should definitely check out. However, the next few minutes only contain the question we ask as a Queers of Time, so don't be surprised if there's some abrupt change of topics. Anyway, we hope you'll enjoy our silly questions and their interesting answers. Cheers!
I feel like I'm in the hall of the tower being questioned.
So this is your the test of the tower. So I wish I could have made the Shakespeare panel, but I couldn't. But I do have a question about Shakespeare.
Sure.
How does your experience with Shakespeare and Shakespearean roles prepare you for other roles like Uno?
Well, what I would say is if you look at some of the great performances in the last 20 or so years in film, in really big poppy movies, you're getting amazing performances from people like Patrick Stewart, and Ian McKellen, and Anthony Hopkins, and all these actors who have a lot of Shakespeare experience. And I think what it helps with is there's a expansiveness of creativity in those plays that encompasses, at times, imaginary settings in fantastical settings, but rooted in reality and real feelings. And I think the best science fiction and fantasy, like The Wheel of Time, is exactly the same thing. So I think in a way, actors who are classically trained are comfortable in science fiction and fantasy. And, you know, if you look back at Greek mythology, for example, the greatest and first fantasy novel in some ways might be the Iliad.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, I think it's a genre that classical actors are very comfortable in. And it's great to have fun with swords and things like that.
Kind of a nerdy question here. Hope you're okay with that. Since the heroes of the Horn all hang out and chill in Teleran Riyadh, what do you think Uno is doing right now?
Well, in this turning of the wheel, he might be following around some blonde archer.
Okay. Just some blonde archer.
Speaking about your castmates, I just wanted to know which character on the show or a member of the cast would you have liked to have scenes with that you maybe didn't get to have scenes with?
Well, I'm not sure if I want to have scenes anymore with Jessica Boone.
Fair.
Although it was an honor. There's so many. But anytime you get to be in the same room with Rosamund Pike, that is a true honor.
So another Shakespeare question, bit of a curveball. What is your favorite Shakespearean insult, and can you give it to us in Uno?
Oh, God, there's so many great ones. Oh, well, we had a little bit of some Shakespeare insults the other night here at the convention. Mm-hmm. And there's an insult that is really simple. You are a senator. And I think given our current political climate all across the world, calling anyone a senator now is perhaps not the best. But I'm not sure Uno even knows what a senator is. So I'll pass on the Uno voice.
Perfectly fine. Thank you so much.
As a fan, what scenes are you most looking forward to in season 3 and beyond?
Well,
that you're allowed to share.
Right, that you may or may not have any knowledge of.
What I will do is I'll talk about scenes later on in the books that that would be in far, far ahead
I've only
seasons.
read to book 12.
Okay. There's something called The Last Battle. I am so looking forward to whatever happens with The Last Battle, because that alone, that could be like 10 seasons alone. So I'm super excited about that. And there are a few particular things. There is a sequence later on in the books with, I think it's not a spoiler, well, maybe it is, with Egwene in the tower. And the sequence later in the books with Egwene in the tower, for me, is one of the great sequences in all of fantasy. And so I think, in general, a lot of fantasy is about the hero's journey and how do you become the hero of your own life. And that sequence is inspiring, and I love reading that.
Yeah. We had a bit of a request, actually. We were wondering if you could say, this is Uno No Mesta, and you're listening to Queers of Time.
This is Uno Bloody No Mesta, and you're listening to the Flamin' Queers of Time.
Perfect.
Oh, God. Was it recording?
It was recording. Here.
Thank you all for listening. This was Queers of Time, a Wheel of Time podcast. The music is Dance of the Witches by Julius H.